I do wonder if there is a whiff of two-tier policing here. The Met have said that there were no arrests made, and I think there's at least one incident there where maybe they could have done.
It's a fair point. Look, I'm not particularly worried about the imagery you showed. Like, I'm not Muslim. I don't bow down to pray like that. I don't wear outfits like that. You did show one image of a chap atop Marble Arch tube station waving a flag. I'm wondering if that was an England supporter waving a flag on Sunday, whether he might have been hauled down and arrested for trespass. And the two-tier policing, both are fine. The answer to your monologue, Patrick, both are fine. That Islamic prayer is fine, and England fans watching England is fine. Here's what the Met Police said on Twitter yesterday. On Sunday. Please remember there are no outdoor screens showing the Euro 2024 final in central London. Many of the pubs are already full. That was at 5:41 p.m. If you were thinking of travelling in, perhaps consider other options and remember to plan your journey home. Now, appreciating that the pubs being full would not have been relevant to the Muslims, did they send out a similar tweet?
No.
So the issue for me is I want both to happen, football fans and Islamic prayer. The question I want the Met Police to answer is, are they treating both groups even-handedly? On the prima facie evidence, no.
No. I mean, it does come hot off the heels, doesn't it, of J.D. Vance saying his stuff about it was a joke, but, about, will Britain be an Islamist country under Labour? And, OK, all right, look, it was a religious festival and, if it was a group of Christians praying in the street, then, I think we have to be tolerant of religious festivals and religious things like that. There's no quarrels about that. But Adam, I do think that the optics of it are quite stark, and I think that tourists might have been like, what the heck is this all about? And, the road closures and things like our arterial routes at Oxford Street, it was Regent Street, Marble Arch, there seemed to be no qualms whatsoever about shutting those down on a work day as well.
Yeah, look, as you said, this isn't a weekend, this is a weekday. This affects the economy. Major roads, major tube stations shut because of this. Now, I'm not religious, but there's only 5% roughly of the population that are Muslim. Why are we allowing the shutting of roads and tube stations for a religious celebration? I wouldn't support that if it was Christian, Sikh, Buddhist or Hindu. I think that is outrageous. And just looking at that, if I was someone that was maybe up London and I didn't know what was going on, I'd feel quite intimidated by the loud noise and the large groups of people marching and whatever they was doing. Let's just remember as well, black cabs in London were not even allowed to show to have English flags on them. I think there's real mixed messages that we're sending. It's like our flag is not okay, religious flags perfectly fine, and I think that's the wrong message.
Do you think that's a sign, Rebecca, that assimilation or an integration is working or failing?
I think it's a sign that the general levels of policing have needed to be different for religious celebrations than from non-religious ones. So the big concern with football is that everybody's drinking. As Mark pointed out, not a big problem with the Muslims, not boozers by trade. So they are not used to having to arrest people in that situation. Now, I don't think that guy should have been on top of the tube thing, and I think he makes everybody else look bad by doing it. But actually, probably the reason no arrests were made is because nobody did anything wrong. Now, the police in this country, I don't like the police. I would defund the police, and the police are rubbish. But I don't think that they are decidedly trying to avoid...
What else is, just to drag it back to that, I mean, obviously there is something wrong with standing on top of a tube station and waving a big flag like that. I mean, some people might think that that is a needless show of force.
I don't think it's a show of force. I think it's showing off. And I think if you get enough young men in one place, and that is all predominantly men, somebody will show off. That's kind of true of whether you're doing it for pride, whether you're doing it for any kind of religious situation, or whether you're doing it... If we had won the Euros, I imagine we would have had a similar... people going, we would have closed roads to make a demonstration.
No, we weren't allowed to be in central London.
I think if it won, we would have been allowed to.
Because this is the other aspect to this. So conceivably, taking this at face value, if a group of 5 or 6 lads wanted to watch the Euros final in a park on their phone and have a few beers, and they got a bit rowdy when England won the Euros, chance to be a fine thing, when we won the Euros, and a police officer had walked past at that time, they could have been arrested.
Yep.
But hundreds of thousands of people marching through the streets of London, flying an Islamic flag and all of that, that's fine. And that, to me, just seems, well, it's different, isn't it?
Well, here's the thing that I think we need to crack, because I'm sympathetic to what both Adam and Rebecca have said in different ways. I don't like these anti-social behaviour dispersal orders. I don't like preempting what might happen. It probably is true that people watching England on Sunday drank more alcohol than the Muslims who were in Hyde Park today. But that's not for the authorities to preempt. We live in a free country. You should be arrested if you do something wrong. Now, to Adam's point, and to yours, Patrick, about sort of, well, they're blocking up Oxford Street and all of the rest of it. This goes for all demonstrations, in my view. The Countryside Alliance,
but they're normally on a weekend.
All of the rest of it. OK, but, I mean, Oxford Street on the weekend...
Oxford Circus is more used to us at the weekend from the economy.
So the question is, if you want to run these sort of things, should you have to rent the land? Or do we allow them to do it for free?
I do also just wonder if there's a little bit of a blind spot amongst certain people here, OK? Because people... you know, intolerance is a bad thing, right? People see that certain groups of people, or they think, might be less tolerant than others. But if you just take the letter of really any fundamentalist religion, but in this case it was a large group of people celebrating a Muslim festival, right? So you take the average view of that lot according to the Quran, etc. Well, what are their views on things like gay people, on women's rights? You know, there's obviously been huge issues at the moment when it comes to anti-Semitism as well, and there doesn't seem to be any consideration for any of that.
But again, that's kind of what Mark's saying, is that you can't do somebody for something they haven't done.
No one wants to raise it, though, do they?
But why would you raise it? If any of those people had said anything sexist or done anything sexist...
If you were a Jewish person today, walking through the middle of London, that might have felt a bit intimidating, I imagine. No?
Yeah, yes. And look, I think going back, imagine that was Tommy Robinson on top of that Marble Arch station waving a big England flag.
Yeah, and for good reason. He has a criminal record. He's been arrested multiple times previously.
He would have been batoned.
Yeah, because he has a history of doing things that are... He's been arrested multiple times.
This is two-tier policing. That man should have been dragged down from the Marble Arch station.
He should have been asked to get down. He should have been asked to get down and told to get down. And if he refused to get down, then fine.
And the same should apply to Tommy Robinson.
Yes, absolutely. But if somebody is a known...
nationalist or patriotic crusade, and one of his people gets up on Marble Arch Station and waves the St George's flag, I would...
He should be asked to get down.
But we have seen time and time again.
But
we have seen a lot of very strong evidence that time and time again, one group of people, whether that's the pro-Palestinian brigade or whether it's the people that were out there today, and I accept, by the way, that it appears that there was just one or two incidents like that Marble Arch today. I don't think there was anything like the widespread disorder and criminality that we've seen at a lot of the pro-Palestine protests, but they are treated completely differently to a load of people who just want to go on to the march.
But they're behaving completely differently.
There's a lack of...
Pride...
Okay,
but let's use an example of a march I like. I love Pride. Now, you get arrests at Pride, or Notting Hill Carnival. I love Carnival. You get arrests there, right? Because people are smoking drugs, people are having fun.
It's not because it's still fun. It's because there's a lot of people with machetes there. That's the difference.
That's fun for some people, Patrick.
People each other with machetes, dealing and doing drugs.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. So the reason that it's heavily policed is because people do things there that are illegal. Now, that is also a non-white festival full of people who are not white, unsurprisingly. This is the same thing. Now, you don't get you're not saying it's two-tier policing between those two. There is no history of people praying for this specific festival causing crimes. There is a history at Notting Hill Carnival. That's why the policing is different.
From what I can see, there was no suggestion these people were supporting Hamas or Hezbollah or, being anti-Semitic on the face of it.
But they weren't outwardly doing so.
People wouldn't ask them. There was no one vox popping there.
No, but I
they're just praying.
Chance of destroy Israel or anything like that.
My main issue here is that for a religion that is only sort of followed by maybe 5% of the population, we are shutting major roads and major tube stations.
Well, it's more of London
to allow
than 5%.
Them to do this. That is my issue with that. I think it's unnecessary and I think it's wrong.
But it's not 5% of London. It's more than that in London because more Muslims live in London. And also, I would say they probably shot less than 5% of London.
Well, look, it's privatise it. If they want to hire Hyde Park, pay the fee.
Look, it's an interesting topic. Again, I will say, we went to the Met Police. As far as they're concerned, they're saying there was absolutely no criminality at this particular thing today. Or do you want to emphasise that? I know, and there were no arrests. I've said that a couple of times now, and you know, this is part of it. It's more of a maybe an optics thing. Maybe some people feel uncomfortable with it. Maybe some people just need to get on board with it. But hey, here we are. It's certainly divided people, and it's divided us here, and it's good to have the conversation, I think. But anyway,